Good to see you. Everybody having a good weekend so far? Yeah, good holiday weekend, and we had a lot of announcements and a lot of stuff going on here. We don't want you to forget, but something we, as a church and as Americans, we don't want to forget is those who have served our country. We're celebrating Veterans Day this weekend. So, if you would, before I jump into today's message, if you have served or are currently serving in our nation's military, would you please stand and give us opportunity to honor you this morning? Would you do that for us? I know there's some in here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you guys, both men and women who give of themselves, and like I said, some give of themselves fully, sacrificially for us and for our freedoms, and we appreciate it, and we don't want to forget that, so thank you so much. We're closing in on the end of our series here in Song of Solomon, and it's been quite a long one. This particular series has lasted a little longer than we typically do. We're looking at 10 weeks. We're in week 9 now. 10 weeks when we normally cut things off at about 8 weeks or so because we feel like we might lose your attention. But everybody seemed to be really connected and getting a lot out of this particular series. But we're going to start wrapping things up here today and next week. But it's been an interesting journey as we've watched this young couple we were introduced to in chapter 1. This young, love-struck couple who just, had stars in their eyes for each other and could see not even a flaw in the other. They found a few there in chapter 5, and they had a disagreement as their relationship progressed. And now we find ourselves here toward the middle of chapter 7 going into chapter 8, which is the end of the book, and they have matured. They've spent quite a bit of time together. I don't know how many years has passed, but as we read, we can tell that this couple, though they are still overwhelmed by one another, they're excited about their relationship. They're entering into sort of the mature days of their life together, and they're entering into a time where they're a little bit seasoned as far as their marriage, because we see that through the ups and the downs that's occurred over the last few chapters, they've persevered. They've really hung in there, and they now, here at the end of the book, stand as a couple that we can use as an example. They serve as an example of what marriage should look like and what we as husbands and wives should strive to be. And if you're not married yet, using them as an example, what kind of person you should be looking for, what qualities and attributes you should desire in a husband or a wife. And so last week, we talked about the kind of man that every woman wants. All right? It was a husband who takes care of himself, and that's not just in, like, he's always in the gym or anything like that, but just inwardly, outwardly tries to be a healthy individual so that he can be there for his wife as long as possible, so that he has the energy to go and to do things and to spend time together. A man that presents himself in a way to her that says, I still desire to please you and to impress you. And guys, any of us can do that. We may not be in the same shape we were in our 20s, but even in our 40s, our 50s, and our 60s, we can present ourselves to our wives that communicates, listen, I still want you to be impressed with me. All right? And that's all she's asking for. A man who tries to take care of himself. A man who is sensitive to her longing, her desire for love. A man who stays in tune with her and her needs, and sort of reads between the lines sometimes and understands what she's saying and what she's feeling. A man who grows in his knowledge of his wife. And what a way to bless her. To tell her as the years go on, I always find and learn something new about you. Something that I respect. Something that I love. This is not routine for me. And this is not old hat. But every day I love you more and more because of the things I'm learning about you. See, our wives, guys, they crave those kinds of things. And then every woman wants a man who remains passionate about his pursuit of her. That doesn't make her feel like when she said and he said, I do, that the chase was over. But a man who constantly is in pursuit of his wife. Doing the little things make a big difference. We need to remember that, guys. But today we're going to sort of turn the table, and we're going to look at the kind of woman that every man wants. The kind of wife that every husband in here would like to have. Traits or characteristics we would like to see in our wives. Okay? And I know, ladies, you might be thinking, here we go. Like, I know exactly the kind of woman every man wants. He wants a woman who looks like Jennifer Aniston, or whatever generation you might be in, but, that was the one I grew up in. Looks like Jennifer Aniston, cooks like Paula Deen, keeps a house neat and clean like Martha Stewart, likes to hunt and fish, and is willing to clean whatever we catch or kill. Like, all the guys like, heck yeah, like, sign me up. That just hit the nail on the head. In reality, if that's really what we're looking for, guys, we probably just lost all the ladies in here. Like, nobody's wanting to sign up for that. Because here's the thing. If that is a picture of what men really want, she doesn't exist. I hate to break it to you. She's not out there. You're not going to find that woman, even though that description, might be on target when it comes to what we're thinking in our minds. See, the problem is, and I think this goes both ways. Many times, we get in our minds and we compile this list of expectations of our spouse that is absolutely unrealistic, unattainable, and has its source nowhere in reality. We conjure up these expectations that our spouse has no possibility. There's no way he or she can live up to these things. So what we need to do, thinking about what we talked about last week and what we're talking about today, is like, where can we find such a list? If we're talking about the ladies today, where could we find a description of the woman that every man would love to love that's based in reality, that is actually attainable, that every woman in here, every wife could live up to, right? Is there such a list? Is there such a description out there somewhere? Of course there is. And where do you think, guys, just throw it out there, where might we find that description? Come on, hit me with it. Yeah, all right, the Song of Solomon. See, some of you who are a little reluctant, you're probably thinking, 2 Corinthians? I don't know, there's 66 books in the Bible. Yeah, the Song of Solomon. We've been here 9 weeks, guys. It would be a little discouraging and disheartening if you said or thought something else. The Song of Solomon shows us what we're looking for, what we need and desire. And so we're going to go there again this week, and we've made a lot of progress, and we're sort of moving a little slow at first, but last week we picked up the pace, and we're going to keep that going this week and pick back up with chapter 7, verse 10, and go all the way through verse 4 of chapter 8. And so if you got a Bible, or maybe you're using the Bible app today, follow along with me. Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 10. Now, Solomon's just finished his description of his wife. This is where we left off last week, to which she responded, I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes send out their fragrance, and at our door is every delicacy, both new and old, that I have stored up for you, my beloved. If only you were like a brother to me, who nursed at my mother's breast, then if I found you outside, I would kiss you, and no one would despise me. I would lead you and bring you to my mother's house, she who has taught me. I would give you spiced wine to drink, the nectar of my pomegranates. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. And so there's a lot there, and believe it or not, just jammed packed with truth in what she just said. When you first read it, especially if you've never read the Song of Solomon, you've never heard this before, it can be a little bit confusing. You can't really pick up on things. Hopefully we're going to be able to make some connections here as we sort of walk through this line by line and thought by thought. But the main thing to remember here, in what she just said, she revealed some qualities, some characteristics about a woman that every man would love to see in his wife. And so, ladies, if that's your goal, if you want to be that kind of woman, that you know your husband desires and loves to love, then there's just a couple things to remember to write down. So get your notes ready, and notice I said a couple. These are not 10 things you need to do in order to be the wife that he wants. 2 things. We are very simple creatures. 2 things to remember this morning. We could probably come up with more, but I think these are super important, and every man in here would probably agree that they would likely top the list. And the first one here, he might not know how to say this. He might not know how to put the words together to communicate this thought, but I know it's what he's thinking. If you want to be the woman that every man wants, that he desires, be first when it comes to intimacy. Be first when it comes to intimacy, okay? We talk about marriage, love, relationships. We talk about the home. All of this from a biblical perspective. And when we do so, we always highlight the importance of men, of husbands leading. We need to be the head of the house. We need to be the priest of our homes. We should be the ones setting the examples. We should be modeling the behavior that we want to see out of those in our house. But does that mean we always have to be first? The answer is no. Jessica and I, we've been married now 13 years. And this isn't like me saying this in an arrogant way, not trying to be some authoritarian or anything. Jessica would agree. I'm pretty sure, right? You've already heard this message once. Okay, just making sure. Without question, I am the leader of our house, the head of our home. I'm the one responsible for setting the example. But that doesn't mean I'm always first in anything. I don't have to be first in order to be the leader. Now hear me, guys. I think we should always be the ones who are leading in the area of intimacy, romance. We need to set the example when it comes to passion and pursuit, but that doesn't mean we have to always and should be first. So ladies, what that means for you is, you really want to get your husband's attention? You really want to excite him? Then on occasion, you take the initiative to be first in the area of intimacy. Guaranteed, he's going to pick up on that. You be the aggressor, if you will, if I can use that. You seek him out. I bet you with every dime that I have, which ain't a whole lot, but he's not going to fight you for first place in that. Because he desires for you, not all the time, but on occasion, to surprise him, and you be the one who is first. You be the initiator in the area of intimacy. And man, Solomon's wife, she does this so beautifully and irresistibly. You remember last week when we read they're just coming off this major disagreement. They have been at it, and she went out looking for him because he just had to sort of get away and clear his head. She went out looking for him. She solicited the help of some of her friends, and once they finally found one another, they were out in public view. The public, seeing the queen, she wanted them to, they wanted her to entertain them, to dance for her. And Solomon says, no, this is not the time for that. She's for my eyes only, and if she's going to dance for anybody tonight, it's just going to be for me. She's going to dance for me. And the next scene in chapter 7, was a private scene in their bedroom where she did just that. She began to dance for her husband. Gracefully, slowly, seductively, she began to dance. And you remember Solomon, he was describing what he was seeing and how excited he was about it. It was the longest and most detailed description of his bride that he gives in the entire book. And it had him so worked up to the point that he was like, I'm going to climb that tree and I'm going to grab hold of those fruit. And she responds to that basically, oh, if you think you can handle this, then you come and get it. Like, come on. Wow. You know? See all these guys in here? They're like, yes. Amen, brother. That's what I'm talking about. Do you hear that? That's what I like, you know? I'm telling you, you want to be the wife that he really wants, that he's crazy about? On occasion, you be the aggressor. You be the one who takes the initiative. And so, ladies, here's how you can follow her example. I'm not saying you have to do everything exactly like she did, but here's how you can take what she did, the example she set, and follow it. First, tell him you're his. The first comment that she makes after he describes her in such a detailed way, in verse 10, listen, she said, I belong to my lover and his desire is for me. Now let me clear that up for you, because I know that some of that's lost in interpretation. But you need to see what she's doing here. She's gotten him so worked up with this little dance thing she's been doing, he can hardly stand himself. And she speaks to him, and this is my interpretation of what that verse 10. All right, I'm a little loose with the interpretation, but I think it's still accurate. Basically, what she is saying is, oh, you like what you see, huh? She bites her lip. Yeah. I know you do. And guess what, baby? It's all yours. You know, she's doing all that. That's what's going on right here. I don't know what Bible y'all reading if you don't see it, but that's what just happened. She's letting him know that all of this is just for you. Your eyes, your hands only. That gets his attention. That excites him. That's what he wants. That's what he desires. So tell him you're his. You're going to follow her example? Another thing to do, you make the arrangements. If you're going to be first in the area of intimacy, then you need to make the arrangements. You need to make the plans for that. I'm not going to get into all the details because it's really none of your business. But my wife loves it when I make the arrangements. You follow me? I might get some candles, maybe put on some soft music. She loves that because she sees me taking the initiative and desiring her. But you want to switch things up, keep things exciting, and leave your husband thinking, wow, that was hot. Then you make the arrangements. You set the stage. He's not going to refuse that. That's going to convince him of your desire for him. This is what she did, this Shulamite woman. She said in verse 11, come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. She has something in mind. She's basically saying to him, let's go off for a little weekend getaway. We need to get away from here. We need to spend some time alone. How about we do this? How about we go there? She had already made the preparations. She had already thought about what she wanted that weekend and that time to look like. So tell him you're his. Make arrangements. Make the plans. And then, like her, be a little creative. Think outside of the box a little bit. Listen to what she says here in verse 12 and 13. She's talking about this weekend getaway. She said, let's go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. It sounds a little risque, but it sounds like she's suggesting we take things outdoors. I don't know. I mean, if that's your thing, then maybe you could make that happen. But like I said, you don't have to follow her example to the T. But she's just trying to be a little bit creative, trying to do something different. And she goes on to say in verse 13, the mandrakes send out their fragrance, and at our door is every delicacy, both new and old, that I've stored up for you, my beloved. You see what she's saying here? She's acknowledging the fact that she believes, she knows, that God has given them everything that they need to keep their love and their marriage exciting, growing, on fire. She says, at our door, at the doorstep, is every delicacy. Everything we could ever want, everything we could ever need, everything we will ever desire is at our doorstep, both new and old. That speaks of the things that we know about each other, that we understand. I know he likes this. I know she likes this. Those are the go-to default things, right? But she says, that's the old. But there's new things too. We're not afraid to try new things. We're not afraid to be creative and to think outside of the box. We're not afraid to try something different. That's how you take the initiative, ladies. And on occasion, be first in the area of intimacy. The second thing that's important to becoming the woman that every man wants, the wife that your husband wants, not just remembering to be first every now and then in the area of intimacy, but to be his friend, not just his lover. Be his friend, not just his lover. There's not a woman in this room, I don't believe, who would say, all I want to be to my husband is a love machine. A lover. I mean, come on. Not a chance, right? Believe it or not, as shallow, as insensitive, as barbaric, as gross, as out of touch as guys we can be, I would also be willing to say that there's not a husband in this room who wants that for his wife. Listen, that's not what we're looking for either. We're interested in something more. You see, that's what separates all of us from animals. We don't crave merely a sexual experience with each other. Our Creator did something wonderful when He created a man and a woman. He created us with a desire for connectedness. You see, when He created Adam, He said about Adam, it's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to make for him a helper, a companion that is suitable for him. And I don't care how many times you read that verse, you will never, ever find even a hint to anything that refers to a sexual experience, because that wasn't God's intention there. That wasn't His primary concern when it came to Adam. He understood that would come later, that would take care of itself. Even Adam wasn't concerned with that. He didn't know any different. God's primary concern for Adam when He made that statement was connectedness. What Adam needs, he's got a relationship with me. That's the first, most important relationship that any of us will ever have. Personal relationship with God. Next to that, God said what he needs now is a friend. He needs a helper. He needs a companion. He needs someone like himself to experience and live life with. That's what he found in Eve. That's what Solomon found in the Shulamite. And ladies, that's what your husband is looking for in you. He's looking for a friend. Somebody he can count on. somebody that he can experience life with and enjoy it. Now, we move in here to chapter 8, and we run into some words and phrases that are a little bit strange to us. This has happened before in the Song of Solomon. But again, just like when Solomon made similar comments, it blessed his wife. What she is about to say here, and we just read it a few minutes ago, will be an encouragement and will be exciting for her husband to hear, but we have to explain it a little bit. She says in verse 1 and 2 of chapter 8, "If only you were to me like a brother who was nursed at my mother's breast, then if I found you outside, I would kiss you, and no one would despise me. I would lead you and bring you to my mother's house, she who has taught me. I would give you spiced wine to drink, the nectar of my pomegranates." All right? So, just a little weird, huh? I mean, we hear that and it's like, guys especially thinking, I don't know how I would react if my wife came in and said, "Oh, baby, if you were just like my brother." I'd be like, "What? You need some counseling. Get away from me, chick." That would not impress us at all. Just like Solomon referred to her in earlier chapters as his sister, right? That's not for us today. We don't understand that kind of talk. But for them, it would have been a way to communicate a deep connectedness. Because what she is saying to her husband is that our love for one another is multidimensional. It's not just about the physical. It's not just about lovemaking. Our bond is inseparable, like that of a family, like that of siblings. And every man needs a woman that he's connected to in that way. Someone that he could say, "She's my best friend." There are no words that I say and enjoy saying more than when I say, "My wife is my best friend." Listen, every man needs a best friend. The dog ain't going to cut it. Just won't live up to it. Wives, we need you to be our friends, to connect with us. As difficult as it might be, to seek to understand us, but not just privately, but publicly. That's the way this woman wanted her relationship with her husband to be seen and their love. She said, "I want it to be evident to everybody. Not just in a private way. I want our love to be evident publicly." That's why she said, "I wish you were like a brother to me, and I wish that if I found you outside that I would kiss you and lead you home." You see, in the ancient East, and even today in some Middle Eastern countries, it's frowned upon for a man and a woman to show public affection unless they're related. Like a brother showing his sister public affection, or she showing him public affection, even if it's a kiss, would be acceptable. But everybody else, you sort of keep that stuff in the privacy of your own home. Otherwise, the people look at that woman and ridicule, judge her, and assume about her things that aren't true. You get what I'm saying? That's why she says, I wish I could do that. Because of our culture, I'm going to restrain myself from showing you this kind of affection publicly. However, I will not restrain myself privately. That's why she included that whole part about, I'm going to take you home and give you some mixed wine and the nectar from my pomegranates. You remember last Sunday when he was describing her and he got to her navel? You remember that part? And he described it as a cup with mixed wine. That's what she's talking about here. I'm going to take you home, give you some mixed wine and the nectar of my pomegranates. She's not talking about going home and stopping by the fruit stand on the way. She's talking about her two fawns, the two twins of a gazelle. That's what it's all about. She's saying, I want you. And I want to express to you. I want to do that publicly, but it's just not acceptable. I will most certainly do that privately. And then that next line where she said, his left arm is under my head and his right arm embraces me. It's a very close and intimate position. She's communicating desire. She's communicating intent. Ladies, pick up on that. You want to communicate to your husband that you love him and that you're a friend to him, right? It's acceptable for us out in public. So publicly express words of affirmation to him. Show him some affection in front of others. That's going to bless him. But then reaffirm that in a much stronger way privately. That's going to please him. Okay? Then she says, making one last final attempt as we draw things to a close this morning. She's trying to lead other people down the right path, her friends and those who are watching what's going on. She says, don't arouse or awaken love until it so desires, until the time is right. Young women, young men, wait. It's worth waiting for. It's worth being exclusive to your spouse. That again would have blessed Solomon. It would have communicated her devotion to him, and it sort of makes us all wonder, like, where did she learn all of this? Where did she learn about love and about marriage and about honoring and respecting her husband and pleasing her husband? Where did she get all of that? The answer is back in verse 2, where she said, I would lead you and bring you to my mother's house, she who taught me. Now this is something I think is important for me to just sort of pause, take a little detour here, and speak about. I think it's of the utmost importance, parents, not just moms, that we all underline that verse. We memorize that line, she who has taught me. As moms and dads, it's important, it's critical that we talk to our kids and we model before them biblical standards when it comes to marriage, love, and sexuality. I understand, like some of the topics and the messages and the things that we've read in the Song of Solomon, as a parent, maybe you've got a middle schooler in here with you, high schooler might not be as uncomfortable, but it can get a little awkward, right? At times, as parents, you're thinking, oh man, I wish kids' life went up to the 8th grade today. Trust me when I say this. You would rather your children hear it here and hear the truth. And you would much rather them hear it and see it from you than you would their peers, the internet, or the public school system. So let's model it. Let's talk about it. Let them learn it at home. I understand like that's a little bit of a rabbit trail, but it's important. It's important that we say it. So we've sort of come full circle now. We looked at the kind of man that every woman wants, every wife would love to have. Guys, we can do that. We can live up to those expectations. That's not unrealistic. And we've looked at the kind of woman that every man wants, and the wife that every husband would love to love. Ladies, I know you can do that. You can live up to this. This is not outside of the realm of possibility. So the challenge for both of us now is simply to go home and be that man and to be that woman, to be that husband, to be that wife. Guys, I gave you some homework last week. Take your wife out on a date. A couple special things. I hope you did that. If not, hope you made plans for it. Still making in your mind some preparations, what that's going to look like, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. Don't fail on that. Don't let me down. Ladies, today, your homework, and we'll give you some grace, right? If it takes a little more time, I know everybody's schedules is busy. We go 100 different thousand directions. But just like the guys, make sure you put it on the schedule. Make sure you plan for this, okay? Make plans. And your husband is hoping like this week, like maybe this afternoon. Make plans to be first in the area of intimacy. Make plans to initiate that with Him, okay? Be creative. Think outside of the box. Think about what your husband desires, what he likes. And then there's a part B to this, and these don't have to be in this particular order. But part B, plan an activity with your husband that would communicate to him your friendship. I don't know exactly what that might look like, but you know what he likes. You know what his interests are, things he likes to do, where he might like to go. But plan an activity with your husband that will communicate to him your friendship. You know, maybe you go somewhere and do something that you're really not all that interested in, but you know, like, he loves that. And so as a friend, let's go do that together. Okay, so think about that. And let's just see where it goes this week. With every head bowed.